Hey bag maker, today I'm going to be talking about the Sewtites magnetic cutting system, new Halloween fabrics that I've added to my stash. The book review will be for a book called Sewing Quiet Books for Children. I'll be demonstrating for tonight's bag lab how to quilt as you go strip piece for a project, and there's a great giveaway at the end. I'm Sarah Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Sewcial Sunday, my weekly sewing chat. Hey everyone, happy Sunday and welcome to Sewcial Sunday. Thanks so much for joining me for the show. Danny was testing the technology beforehand, so fingers crossed that our sound doesn't have a little blip tonight during the show. I see Pat's watching from New Jersey, Cindy from New York, Angela says hello as well. So welcome everyone. My usual spam reminder, if you're watching over on Facebook, I never send a private message via Sew Sweetness about winning a prize. So if you ever do get a private message with an avatar that looks like mine, the Sew Sweetness logo, feel free to report or block that. Often they're asking for information such as sending money to claim a prize, wire transferring money, asking for any other information like your phone number. Please do report or block that. If you're watching over on YouTube and you've left a comment on the show, and you see a reply to your comment. Lately it's been an avatar that looks like Sew Sweetness with what looks like a phone number in bubbles in the, I guess, subject line of the response. Also, feel free to report or block that. I always announce the winner's name verbally on the show, and we've also started adding the winner's names to the description of the show as well. So in case you'd like to double check that, that's where you can find the winner's name and for each week's show. Also, my other reminder, just about everything that I talk about during Sewcial Sunday are things that I've purchased myself. So these are not things that I'm getting paid to talk to you about, but just cool things that I found that I'd like to share with you. And everything that I'm scheduled to talk about, I link to in the description. So if you're interested in finding out more about any of the books, fabrics, notions, or projects that I talk about during Sewcial Sunday, just check that link in the description and you can find out more information there. So as I promised last week, I am reviewing... All set? All right. As I promised last week, I am reviewing the new Sewtites magnetic cutting system. I have a link in the description to the cutting system as well as a 15% off discount code. You can find that in the description. Just to be completely transparent, this time I did not pay for this particular mat. I was sent this mat by Sewtites, but this isn't a sponsored post, so all of the thoughts are my own. And in fact, I liked it so much. My original plan was to give it to my mom to use since she's cutting out the fabric for my sewing patterns, so that I can get to pattern writing quicker. Even though I do enjoy cutting fabric and interfacing and fusing it before I get to work, it just helps me be a little bit more productive on the pattern writing side. But because I liked it so much, I'm just going to buy a second set for her just so she can have her separate set at her workshop, and I can have this at home because I did super enjoy using it. So Danny's going to switch to the overhead camera so that I can show you how it works. It comes actually in this nice I guess storage box, and there's a handle up top, and they also sent me a tote bag for toting the system in the box. Everything's nice and secure in there with a bit of foam to keep it from rattling around in the box, which I thought was nice. And there's a few disclaimers that they sent in this little card. Magnets aren't toys, so don't allow children or pets to handle the magnets. Also, don't wear magnets on clothing near a pacemaker. So those are the two most important ones. I'm going to flip to the back and read some of these also because I found these to be important as well. Only use rotary cutters on the mat. Knives with fixed blades may damage it. Change your rotary blades often because sharp blades help preserve the life of the mat and then also make cutting easier. Rotate and flip the mat occasionally so that you're not always cutting in the same area. Turn it on its side, make it long ways, things like that. Stored in the provided box or on a flat surface in a cool, dry area out of direct sunlight. Do not leave it in a very hot or cold area or in your car because extreme temperatures can damage all of these items. Wipe clean with a damp cloth. Keep it flat.
Wipe clean with a dry cloth.
Dry cloth. With a little water on the cloth. Yes, thanks, Danny. Keep flat. Don't try to roll this because it will never unroll. And then please don't iron it or use iron near this at all. Okay, so here I'm going to actually slide the mat up a little bit. Hopefully Danny can get these numbers in the, there we go. That's great, Danny. Okay, so it has two different directions you can lay it. In this direction, as you can see, the numbers go from every 1 inch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also across the bottom, as you can see right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I flip the mat in the opposite direction, the numbers instead go by every 1/2 inch. So depending on what you're most comfortable with, I personally prefer the solid 1, 2, 3 inches. And then there's two sides, so the light gray, and then let me take my magnets off here really quick. And then the reverse side is dark. So if you have lighter fabrics, the dark side might be better. I personally prefer the side with the lighter gray. And it is 7 layers, so it's quite substantial, and the magnetic portion is embedded on the inside. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you the side view, but it is definitely a substantial mat. Let's see. I think I already mentioned it was self-healing. I found when I first started using this, it sort of seemed like a different surface than I'm used to from my other cutting mats that are also self-healing. It seems more slick and smooth, which I really like. And just because it's slick and smooth, I don't mean the fabric's just gonna fly all over the place. It just has like a different feel to it, which is just completely tactile and subjective, but I liked it nonetheless. It comes with these extra 12 magnets, so one side is magnetic for if you need a stronger grip or if you have a thicker substrate like foam interfacing. These magnets are great to add on. And then it also comes with the ruler. The ruler also contains the magnets embedded as well. I like the idea of the magnets embedded in the ruler because it prevents the ruler from sliding but still makes it easy to kind of shift over, especially if you're cutting strips. What else did I want to mention? If I do need to cut yardage, for example, for quilts, I think I will probably turn this so that it's long ways. But the ruler is a longer ruler. It's 24 inches by 6.5 inches, the ruler that comes with the set. A nice little bonus feature. I'm going to have Danny switch to the overhead. I'm not sure if this will come up on camera. It's sort of like a beveled or diagonal edge over here, which is nice for if you need to pick it up, you just slide your fingertip underneath and it just picks up rather than having to kind of grip with your fingernail kind of to pull it up. It just easily lifts up really nicely. And so I prepared, one more other thing I wanted to mention about it. If you go to the Sewtites website, they sell a right-handed version and also a left-handed version. So you have those two different options if you decide to check this out. So I prepared a few different, let me grab my rotary cutter. I'm actually going to stand up for this just because I don't normally sit for cutting out fabric. But I have a few examples. I had to cut out I had to trim almost 100 flying geese the other day. So I got these block lock rulers, which made the process a lot faster than using my traditional ruler. And I thought the magnets were really great because they really, Dan, you can go ahead and zoom in on this one. They really held it in place because I found that when I tried to cut this without the magnets, the ruler kind of tended to shift on me a little bit. So I thought I'm not going to cut this direction just because I need to shift this. Actually, I'll just shift it really quick. So the magnets really make it nice and secure. I also pulled out some other types of rulers that I have just to give you some different ideas. I have several of these stripology rulers from Goodrin. You might be familiar with her, GE Designs. And normally I just do my best to cut out the strips, but I realized earlier that the magnets would be really fantastic for holding the layers. And you can add as many as you need to. There we go. As you can see, the ruler's not shifting at all. And I prepared some foam interfacing and cork too. So I tried to test the foam interfacing with the foam folded in half, so 2 layers of foam, and actually the magnets can't go through the 2 layers, but certainly for the 1 layer. I've got an acrylic template over here. I'm just going to use the magnets. And normally I'm drawing my pattern pieces out, but for the sake of the demonstration, I'll just go ahead and use my rotary cutter. There we go. All right, holds it nice and easy in place, and I've also got some cork fabric over here too. I think the magnets are the most useful for the thicker substrates like the cork fabric and the foam interfacing. Let me grab the ruler over here. So what I really like about this magnetic ruler is it's really hard to get anything to slide over. It's stuck on there pretty well, but if I need to, actually with the cork fabric, it's not sliding as well as the quilting cotton. So I'll pull out both. So I've got a piece of quilting cotton over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut some strips and slide this ruler over. It's just really nice to cut with. And then let me pull that cork fabric back over here. So I have to say, when I first heard about this product, I think it was from a pre-order from my distributor, and I just thought, I don't know, that just doesn't seem like something that I really need. But when Danny and I went to a trade show in June, I got to try it out. They had scraps of cork fabric, they had some quilting cotton, and I was just sort of sold after that, because even though I have some pretty great rotary cutters in my stash, my rulers are always slipping, and especially cutting fabric for a quilt, any slippage means that I might not have enough fabric out of what I purchased to make the actual quilt. And it happens to me several times during making each quilt. My ruler will slip and I'll have a little bit of fabric waste. So this definitely prevents that. I just thought it was fun to use. I like the extra magnets. It comes with 12. And if you're interested in checking it out further, I have a link to Sewtites, as I mentioned, 15% off coupon code in case you're interested, and that applies to anything on the Sewtites website, not just the magnetic cutting system. But check it out after the show. Let me know what you think. If you've already gotten your pre-order, by the way, this is a pre-order. They don't have these in stock yet. They just had a few to send out to demonstrate. Kim says, what's the length and the width? Oh, thanks, Kim, for bringing that up. It is 24 inches long. Danny, could you switch back to the overhead camera? Can you zoom out a little bit, please? Thank you. So it's 24 inches long with the measurements, and then 20 inches tall, and it kind of extends a little bit past for an outer border in case you're cutting something longer. Rachel says, do they have bigger sizes? This is the first one. I'm not sure if they plan to have bigger sizes in the future. Yeah, but this is their first mat. Actually, I kind of would be interested in maybe like a 36-inch long by either 20-inch high or 24-inch high. But this is a pretty good size also, and it fits great on my cutting table. All right, so it actually is my daughter Violet's birthday coming up this week. She had a party for her friends last week, and we'll be having a family party on the actual day. So this year she seemed really into her birthday. She went bowling with her friends. I don't know, just a really wholesome birthday so far. So time sure is flying by fast, though. Both of our kids are teenagers and both in high school. So I don't know where the time went. What do you think, Danny? Did it fly by for you also? Sound's not working? Okay.
No, it was my sad horn.
Oh, okay. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, what dessert do you generally like for your birthday? Are you a chocolate cake person? You like cheesecake? Maybe you like a dessert that's less on the sugar side, maybe more on the fruit side. Let me know in the comments what your favorite dessert is for your birthday. All right, so new fabric that I've added to my stash, 2 different lines of fabric, both Halloween fabrics. Danny's gonna switch to the overhead camera. The first set of fabrics is from a fabric line called, what was the fabric line? I wrote it down. Pretty Creepy. I wrote it down because I thought it was really cute and I wanted to remember it because sometimes I get on the show and my mind sort of draws a blank. So it is cute-ish looking Halloween characters, skulls, pumpkins, but, you know, cute looking. Some florals mixed in. I actually bought the whole fabric line. I don't often purchase full fabric lines unless it's Tula Pink, but I just thought these were really great. I like the skeletons with the pumpkins. Pumpkins are all smiling and happy. I like the bats. They were both neon, this one and the orange. Some little skulls over here. This one's sort of a larger print. Let me open this up. Skulls, spiders. I think I saw pumpkin on the other side. Pumpkins and bats. As you can see, all very cute looking. I like the skeleton print too. Some of the skeletons are holding little flowers. This would be great for a lining. It's got some little bats, moon, there's a little witch over here. And then I think this is probably my favorite print from the line. And then the second Halloween fabric line that I purchased is from Art Gallery Fabrics. It's called Spooky and Witchy. So I've been collecting Halloween prints from Art Gallery Fabrics. They've done several Halloween lines now, and I'm collecting them for, I wasn't quite sure what project. I knew I wanted to make some sort of quilty project. This is my favorite print by far. The different vials of, you know, poisons. So I got this quilt pattern earlier this year. Unfortunately, I was not able to find the shop online anymore. I'm not sure why. But the quilt is called Throwing Shade, and it's sort of a, I feel like it's sort of a feature quilt where this particular version was made using Tula Pink Everglow, but all of the insides of the blocks are the different animals, and I thought I'd use the Halloween, like the main prints for the center of the blocks. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I wish I could link this quilt pattern for you, but I wasn't able to find it any longer. So I'll flip through the rest of the fabrics in the fabric line. And if you've ever worked with Art Gallery Fabrics before, you know the fabrics are super soft and a little bit more drapey than the other quilting cottons out there. And I just thought, I know it's September, Halloween's sort of right around the corner. I thought it would be a great opportunity to feature these fabrics on tonight's show. And then here's a different colorway of the different bottles of poisons. Love this print. Love the hot pink. Love the ghosts. This is another favorite from the fabric line. Here's some different trick-or-treaters. And then here's sort of a low vibe on the Halloween, but it's still got the florals with some spider webs and some little spiders over here. So this is Spooky and Witchy from Art Gallery Fabrics, and I've linked to both of these fabric lines in the description in case you're interested in checking them out after the show. And I have another question for you. Let me know in the comments. What is your favorite thriller or scary movie? So I started watching this new to me show recently. It's called Bad Sisters. Maybe it's a little bit more, I wouldn't call it a thriller or a scary movie, but I guess it popped into my head tonight since I just recently started watching it. It's not a comedy, but it sort of makes me laugh at times. The premise of the TV show, it's on Apple Plus, is there's these 5 sisters, and one sister is married to one jerk of a husband. He's just very verbally unkind to her, and so they plot, the other 4 sisters, unbeknownst to the married sister, they are plotting to murder him, and so everything they try fails. I haven't finished the last episode yet, but I'm quite enjoying it, and I heard that they're coming out with a season 2. Again, it's called Bad Sisters, in case you're interested in checking that out. And what else am I up to this past week? Baking. So I made lemon blueberry cake. I've made this a few times before. It's a really great recipe from Natasha's Kitchen. Danny's going to put a picture up on the screen. This is actually a picture from the recipes website. I actually added, because I made it before, I felt a little confident to add a little bit of extra. It does call for lemon zest and lemon juice, and I added a little bit of extra of both. And in fact, I enjoy it that much more with the extra lemon in it. But I've linked to the recipe in the description in case you're interested in checking it out. And the whole cake was gone within several days, and I'm pretty sure I ate half of it on my own. So it's a good sized cake, but it turned out fabulous and one of my favorites. All right, another reminder, we have our September challenge underway. This month's challenge is twofold. You can either decide to make the Calliope jewelry organizer from Mannequin Season 4, or your second option is to make a Sew Sweetness project featuring animal fabric, your favorite animal. I'm linking the September challenge in the description of tonight's show in case you'd like to accept the challenge, and I see a few entries have made their way in so far, so hope to see your finished Sew Sweetness project in the September challenge. And Danny's favorite part, Latoya says, I made that lemon blueberry cake this weekend. It was a hit. Yay, happy to hear that, Latoya. Thanks for the recipe. Yeah, I am a chocolate girl, but a close second is any dessert with fruit in it, Fruit Crisp, or I think Fruit Crisp is probably something I've made most often, but that lemon blueberry cake is, from me, 2 thumbs up. All right, Danny's favorite part of the show, when he's not on it at least, we'd like to invite all of the bag makers to stand proud. Let us know in the comments that you're part of the Sew Sweetness squad. Danny and I are both super grateful that you've tuned into the show. We really appreciate you. Thanks so much for watching. All right, so the book review for tonight is something a little bit different that I came across, but I thought it was pretty interesting, so I wanted to feature it on the show tonight. It's called Sewing Quiet Books for Children. And Danny's going to switch to the overhead camera so that I can show you the book. So there's just so many instructions and inspiration for different pages for this book. So I just bookmarked a few, but the premise of the book is soft books that children can touch, and maybe there's something featured in it like a zipper that they learn how to zip and unzip. So I thought it was just really brilliant. And there's some examples of different pages of a quiet book here. And as you can see, there's different ways to attach the pages, either by sewing them together, by creating rings. And the beginning portion of the book, and here's some other really cute ideas. The beginning portion of the book, as with all craft or quilt books, shows you how to do certain techniques, such as install a zipper, sew on buttons. So that's all in the beginning portion of the book. And then the instructions on how to make the different pages are throughout. And like I mentioned, I just bookmarked a few. But these would be really easy also for maybe an older child learning how to sew that might have younger siblings, because these all seem really approachable, the projects. A lot of top stitching with different materials like the cloud or this little jellyfish over here. And I just thought they were just really neat ideas, and you know, something like this with this rope which they can sort of unwind and play with, something to keep them busy that's not an electronic device, which I thought was really interesting. This one, these are all numbers they're Velcroed in place so they can be put in different order. Playing kind of with unsticking the Velcro because it makes like a little noise when you unstick it. Just things that would be fun to young children. These little cute clothespins holding the clothes in place. Just really fun ideas, and the whale, which was an example from earlier, and I just thought it would be, I don't know, just combining sewing but not super time consuming for a project. It would make a great gift maybe for a baby shower, or if you have grandchildren around, something that you could make, have the page done, and have them playing with it right off the bat. So thought it was a fun book. Again, it's called Sewing Quiet Books for Children, and I've linked to the book in the description in case you're interested in checking it out after the show. All right, Danny, are you ready?
We're interrupting the show for a special report.
Because now it is time for Bag Lab.
Okay, tonight's Bag Lab is instructions on how to sort of piece fabric together. You can do this with really any sewing pattern. This particular example is the Goldenrod book cover. This one was sewn for me by Michelle Tripp, and as you can see, it's got a beautiful rainbow on the cover. These strips were all sewn as a Quilt As You Go project. So if you're not familiar with Quilt As You Go, actually I'm going to have Danny switch the overhead camera right away so that I can show this again. Zoom out a little bit. There you go. Okay, so with Quilt As You Go, you're attaching one strip or one piece of fabric at a time, and as you attach and flip the fabric so that it's right side facing, then you just quilt it. So by the time you've finished attaching all the strips, the whole piece is quilted, and I just thought, it's not quilted on the inside, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like on the inside. But this really adds a bit of wowza to a project, and it doesn't take too much time to assemble. You know, certainly the back could be plain, but just to have a nice cover with some piecing on it, or you could certainly piece the front and the back of a bag if you're working on a bag that you'd like to have featured as Quilt As You Go. So I assembled a piece before the show, and I'm also going to partially demonstrate how to do this on camera as well. So I'm using my, where did I put my pattern piece? Here we go. So because I'm using the goldenrod pattern as an example, I'm going to piece some fabric for the front of the goldenrod. So I recommend you to rough cut the piece a little bit larger than the pattern piece, and then we'll cut that down to size afterwards. The reason we're rough cutting is because sometimes with quilting, the fabric and the interfacing tends to shrink down a little bit, and so with the rough cutting, you'll ensure that you have the correct size piece for your project. So I'm going to go ahead and just rough cut it a little bit larger than the piece. You don't even have to add the curved edges, and you can just go ahead and cut straight. And then I'm going to get that started, and I'm going to flip my piece over and then cut the other half. You can also quilt to other materials like batting if the pattern that you're working on requests a different type of interfacing. But because this book cover uses the foam interfacing, that's what I'm going to use for the demonstration. And I went ahead and pre-cut my pieces. I decided that I wanted to have pieces sort of on the diagonal, just like this finished goldenrod book cover, but you could certainly have pieces going straight across or up and down, whatever you prefer. Okay, so what I did was I decided on using strips that were all 1 1/4 of an inch wide. Again, you can choose different widths for yours as well. And what I did was I approximately measured the biggest piece, which would be a piece that would go across the middle, and so I tried to cut most of my pieces this length. And again, that'll depend on the size of the piece and which orientation you're going to be placing the strips. Okay, so I'm going to start with my first piece. I'm just going to go ahead and lay it across the corner. You can put it fairly close to the corner if you'd like. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and sew the outer edges down to the foam, and that will prepare me to add my second piece. So I'm going to step over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to go ahead and sew this about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of either the foam or the fabric over here. And I am going to use a slightly lengthened stitch length, so for this I'm going to use 3mm stitch length. Okay, so I've got that first piece sewn down, so now I'm going to add a second strip of fabric. So I'm going to place this second piece, mine are all solid, so there's not really a right or a wrong, but I'm going to be placing these pieces right sides together, making sure to align this edge over here with this first yellow strip. If you'd like to use traditional pins, you can, but I'm just going to go ahead and hold it in place with my fingers, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from this edge of the fabric, and I'm going to keep using just that lengthened 3mm stitch length for sewing as well as for quilting. Okay, so I recommend instead of using a seam roller, and I don't have my iron on just because this cutting mat can't take an iron, but I recommend instead of using your iron in this type of motion, just to sort of finger press the strip away from the seam and just kind of set the iron on top. And the reason that you don't want to kind of glide it over the fabric in the interfacing is that you don't want to stretch out the fabric, so kind of it warps as you're pressing, so you just want to kind of bring the iron down gently in an up and down motion. Alright, so I'm going to, before I add my third strip, I'm going to do some machine quilting. So I'm going to sew, you can use whatever spacing that you'd like. I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from the seam on either side, and that'll sort of start my machine quilting off. And you can use a thread that stands out, or if you prefer, you can choose a thread that blends in, and I'm just going to go ahead and use white thread, which will really pop and make the quilting stand out. Okay, so now I'm going to add a third piece, and it's going to go, wash, rinse, and repeat, same process. So again, I'm going to align my third piece so that the raw edges are aligned, and I'm going to sew this edge again using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so just as before, I'm going to finger press this, and then you'll want to just bring your iron up and down on top of the fabric. And again, I'm going to stitch this 1/4 of an inch away from the edge on either side of the seam. Okay, so that's what it'll look like as you start to build. You'll be attaching the rest of your fabrics so that the whole piece is all covered. And this is what it will look like after you've got all of the pieces attached and quilted. And then after you've done that, you'll just want to take your pattern piece and you'll just want to cut this assembled strip piecing to size. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay this on top and actually use some of those Sewtites magnets. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my friction pen for this one. You could certainly use your rotary cutter, but like I said, I'm generally just drawing out all my pattern pieces. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut out 1/2. And what I usually do here, you probably saw me making sort of a vertical marking. Anytime I have a pattern piece that I don't want to fold my piece in half, I just like to cut mirror images, and so I'll use that vertical line to align the pattern piece so that I can cut the other half. And I just think piecing and quilting fabric gives it just a really unique look. I've always enjoyed choosing fabrics that were special to me for my projects, but especially quilting something I think has the potential to be sort of a showstopper when you're out and about. I think people will really notice a project that's been pieced and quilted. I think it just looks really unique and really different. So you would actually prepare this quilt as you go panel while you're cutting out your fabric and attaching it to interfacing. And as you can see, I mean, it looked fine as my stripped piece, but after I cut it out, it just like really pops. And here's the finished example from the Goldenrod book cover. Just really special. These are all Tula Pink fabrics, and it just gives a really unique look to your project. And it really didn't take much time at all to assemble the strips for this. And you can use, like I mentioned before, you can use different size strips. You can do patchwork as well if you wanted something more intricate and involved, and you can also do different types of quilting, although the straight line quilting works really well with these particular strips and it's just really easy to do. So I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. Let me know in the comments if you've ever made sort of a quilt as you go project like this, and what kind of bag you made it for. All right, I'm going to be answering some questions live in just a minute, so if you have a question for me, let me know in the comments. It can be a sewing question, bag making question, question about a notion or tool, or perhaps you have a question about my sewing history. Go ahead and ask your question in the comments at any time, and Danny will be collecting questions so that he can post them for me on the screen. Sarah says, I've been saving salvage strips for a long time. This could be a great way to use those. Yes, that's a fantastic idea. You could either, I've seen people sew the salvages right sides together, or I've also seen people leave the salvages raw. You know how it kind of looks like a frilly edge on your salvages. And Danny mentioned too, usually the designer's name, sometimes there's little pictures along the selvage like apples or raccoons or something like that. So salvages would be great for this strip piecing as well. Sharon Anna says, this is a great way to use up leftover fabric pieces. I love how it turns out. Thank you so much for Bag Lab. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed that demonstration. And for this particular project, I only needed 18 little strips of fabric. So like you mentioned, you might have some really, really small scraps, but those small scraps will really go a long way for a pieced project like this. Jennifer says, makes me think of that fun striped gum. Yeah, it totally does. The, what was it called? Zebra stripes? I think that's what it was called. Linda says, is there a reason why strips can't all be sewn on at once and then go back and quilt at once? No, you can do it either way. So you could either do quilt as you go like I did in this demonstration, or you can piece all of your strips and then attach it to interfacing. Normally when I'm piecing strips and then attaching to interfacing later, I like to attach it to Shapeflex interfacing before I attach it to the foam, just because it kind of prevents it from shifting before you attach it to the foam, but certainly if you like to skip the shape flex, you could as well. So either method will work. I kind of enjoy the quilt as you go because it's just really easy with a smaller bit of fabric to quilt. It's really easy to quilt it, and I find that there's less shifting too because you're just working with like a really small area as opposed to going back later and quilting the whole area. But either way would be completely fine. Oh, thank you very much. Hit the like button. We do really appreciate the likes, the thumbs up, and the shares. Laura said, what kind of foam is that? So this is actually, let me see if I have this is by Annie Soft and Stable. Danny, could you switch to the overhead camera? So because I buy it by the roll and it's sort of exposed to light for an extended period of time, it kind of yellows over time. Normally when you purchase it, when you first purchase it, it's white, but as you can see, mine has yellowed a little bit. This doesn't at all affect the finished project. But yeah, you should know if you purchase it in larger amounts, you might find this occurring, the sort of yellowing of the interfacing. Good question. Kathy says, I have not done any quilting yet. This quilt as you go seems like a good way to start. Yeah, it's really fun and easy. And like I mentioned with this book cover, Michelle only really quilted the front, and the back was just, you know, the plain fabric that the rest of the project was. Gail says, I enjoyed the lab demo. Thank you very much. And if you ever have a suggestion for a future bag lab, feel free to email me. I have a nice little folder in my inbox for all of your bag lab suggestions. So I would say majority of the bag lab presentations are actually suggestions that have been emailed. Laura says, oh, I was wondering why the foam is yellow. Yep, yeah, just exposure to light. Constance says, I have made table runners, placemats, hot pads, and quilts. Yeah, quilt as you go is great for those smaller projects like placemats. A few years ago, I made some placemats that were also quilt as you go, and it's just really fun. And if you haven't quilted before, machine quilted, it's a really great low volume way to get started with quilting. Sheila says, was wondering if it was non-trico since the foam was yellow. Yeah, this is the by Annie Soft and Stable, which does have the thin layer on the top and the bottom. Yeah, just the light over time. I've probably had that roll for most of the year, so that's why it's been yellowing on me. Carolyn says, oops, missed Carolyn's comment. Sorry about that. Carolyn says, I really appreciate all of your bag labs. This one was great. Thank you so much. I really have a lot of fun with the bag labs, especially with some of your suggestions that you've been sending in. It gets my brain thinking, which is part of the reason why I love pattern writing so much. Tina says, do you have a preferred material for reinforced bag bottoms? Over the years, I'm not sure if you're talking about a false bottom, which is sort of a bottom that you can put in the bag and take out that makes the bag bottom nice and stiff. I've used different materials over the years, such as foam core board. I'd have to say my favorite right now is corrugated plastic. You can find that at your local big box store that sells school or art supplies. If you're in the United States, a couple examples are Michaels or Joann Fabrics. During election time, most of those signs are made with corrugated plastic, so if you happen to pick up some of those after the elections are over, those would be free and a really great material to use for your false bottoms. I do have a free video on my YouTube channel and on my website showing how to make a false bottom. You can just go over to the Sew Sweetness YouTube channel and type in false bottom in the search box, and that video should come up. It's really fast and easy. Lori says, I did my first quilting on the Enigma pouch, and now I know how to do more quilting. Never quilted before. Well, I'm glad you got to try that out with the Enigma pouch. There's a tiny bit of machine quilting for the bottom panel of the Enigma pouch just to make it more sturdy and nice and smooth. And so I guess that's another way to try out some machine quilting if you haven't before. Sorry, Danny, was there one more question or comment on there? I think I missed it. Oh, Susan says, this is my first time seeing you. This is great. Thanks so much for tuning in, Susan. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll be back again next Sunday. If you're new around here, I sort of alternate Sundays. So every other Sunday I'm on the show with the book review, the notion of the week, new fabrics like I've done tonight, and then every other Sunday, my husband Danny's on the show with me. We just have some fun chit chat, answer some more questions, and that's a fun show as well. So that'll be next Sunday's show. Danny, are you calling in on the questions? All right, I apologize if I did not get to your question live, but like I mentioned, I'll be back again next Sunday with Danny, and I'll be answering some more questions. So one last thing to get to, and that's the giveaway. I decided to do an $88 gift certificate for the giveaway tonight. So if you happen to be the winner of that prize, perhaps you're interested in, if you don't already have it, Minikin Season 4, which is where this Goldenrod book cover sewing pattern is a part of. Or if you already have all the Minikins bundles, you can use your $88 gift certificate on whatever you'd like from our shop. The winners are always randomly drawn. You have until the end of the day this Saturday to leave a comment on the show. We add up all the comments from Facebook and YouTube, and I will announce that randomly drawn winner on next Sunday's show. Gathering Stitches says, oh, that's a beautiful avatar. That looks like, is it Queen of Diamonds? I love that quilt. My auto captions translates your business into soul sweetness, which I think is also fitting. I love that. I really love that. Thanks for that comment. All right, so prize for tonight is an $88 gift certificate to sewsweetness.com, and I have an extra bonus question for you that you can answer in the comments for an extra method of entry. Your best guess, how many scissors do you have? No counting. Go ahead and just leave in the comments what your best guess is. My best guess is probably, I'm always buying non-fabric scissors for the household because everyone is always taking I call them paper scissors, but obviously they can cut other things besides paper. I have one in the kitchen and I have one in my room, and over the years I've given everyone their own set of scissors because they're always disappearing. And the other day I was thinking, I wonder if I need to buy 2 more pairs of scissors, because whenever I go to use scissors like in the kitchen or something, there's no scissors to be found, and it's really irritating. So everyone needs to keep their scissors in this house in check. But yeah, I guess probably at least 12 pairs of scissors for different functions, obviously. Pinking shears, things like that, those all count in my mind as scissors. So let me know in the comments your best guess. How many scissors do you have? Thank you so much for tuning into Sewcial Sunday. I had a great time. I hope you did too. I hope you have a great week and happy sewing. Bye, everybody.